Welcome to Skyline's second episode tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Driti Atri. Tonight, let me ask you a simple question. When we think about Indians abroad, we often imagine success stories. Better jobs, better salaries, a better quality of life, but behind those dreams, another reality is quietly unfolding. Now, at first, these stories may seem completely unrelated. But if you look carefully, every headline tells us something about changing lives of Indians around the globe. Some stories are about opportunity, some are about challenges, some are about crime, some are about immigration, and some are about global politics that is reshaping everyday lives. Tonight, we connect all 8 stories, explain what really happened there and why these developments matters not just to Indians who are living abroad, but also to the families back home. Again, I'm Driti Atri, this is Skyline, and let's start with it. Can you imagine introducing yourself as a secret CIA officer? Imagine powerful politicians believing you. Imagine getting access to defense ministers, military officials, and billion-dollar weapon team. Well, it sounds like a Hollywood spy thriller, right? Nobody will believe it, but according to the international investigation, something very similar may have actually happened. An Indian origin businessman, his name is Gaurav Srivastava, has been accused of posing as a CIA agent while building close relations with senior Indonesian officials, including their current president, Prabowo Subianto, when he served as a defense minister. According to a joint investigation by OCC, RP, and Tempo, companies linked to Srivastava secured several defense procurement agreement involving fighter jets, helicopters, transport aircraft, and military command center. However, none of the proposed deals were eventually completed, though Srivastava has denied the allegations and he has called them false. Now think about this. Defense deals are among the most sensitive agreements any country can sign. Well, before governments spend billions of dollars on military equipment, every background check, every security clearance, and every meeting, it is supposed to go through multiple layers of scrutiny, right? And that is why these allegations have surprised many observers here. According to investigation, Srivastava allegedly convicted several influential people that he had deep connection inside America's intelligence community. And if that is true, then it raises an uncomfortable question. Can influence sometimes become more powerful than verification? The investigation also claims companies linked to him had little or maybe no defense background. Yet, they reportedly received the agreements involving some of the world's most advanced military equipment. Although Indonesian officials have clarified that none of the agreements became legally binding, the allegations continue to attract global attention here. In the meantime, Srivastava strongly rejects every single accusation and insists that he never falsely claimed to be associated with CIA. Well, now, as legal proceedings continue, investigators will now attempt to establish exactly what happened behind the closed doors. Because when intelligence agencies, international business, and billion-dollar defense contracts come together, the story quickly becomes much bigger than one individual here. But yes, while the story involves billions of dollars, our next story is about something that affects the ordinary families every single day. So we have one word for that: healthcare. And one Indian family has discovered just how expensive getting treated in America really can be. For years, many Indians have believed that America offers the world's best healthcare. Modern hospitals, advanced technology, highly trained doctors, and cutting-edge medicines. But there is another side to that particular system. A side that many people only discover after receiving the bill. An Indian senior citizen recently shared his experience after visiting the United States, and his story has now gone viral. While staying with his daughter in Seattle, he and his wife needed a refill of medicines that had originally been prescribed in India. They first had to consult a general physician through a video appointment before receiving a prescription. The medicines took several days to arrive, first of all. Despite having health insurance that covered part of the cost, the family still paid the equivalent of about 21,000 rupees for medicines that reportedly cost about 2,500 in India. In fact, after a week later, they also received a doctor's consultation bill of approximately $283. Now think about that. The medicine was manufactured in India. The same medicine, the same company, but the final price was dramatically different. The story has started an important conversation among Indians living overseas. Well, the question is healthcare abroad always better, or is affordable healthcare equally important? Now, many Indians who move abroad expect higher salaries, but they also discover higher cost of living, healthcare insurance premium, doctor consultation fee. In fact, prescription medicine and emergency treatment can become major financial burden. Well, the Indian man who shared this particular experience eventually said something that caught everybody's attention. He argued that India remains one of the best places for retirement because everyday healthcare it is still relatively accessible and affordable for the middle class. His comments have kind of triggered thousands of reactions online. Some agreed completely, others pointed out that America offers world-class treatment but at a much higher cost here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this debate will definitely continue. But let's be honest here. One thing is clear. When families decide to move abroad, salaries should never be the only factor. The cost of everyday life matters just as much. And yes, speaking of long-term planning, our next story is about another expense that thousands of Indian families in America now need to be prepared for. Well, ladies and gentlemen, sad to deliver that becoming an American citizen is now more expensive. For millions of immigrants, receiving a green card, it's a huge milestone. It means stability, it means security, it means finally building a permanent life in America. But for many families, the journey does not end there. The final goal is the US citizenship. And now that final goal, it is becoming more expensive. Ladies and gentlemen, according to immigration expert, Indian green card holders are being advised to treat citizenship as a long-term financial goal because application costs continue to rise every single day. Current USCIS filing fee stands at about $710 for online naturalization application and $760 for paper application. Now imagine, for a family of 4, government filing fee alone, it can exceed $2,800 before accounting for legal costs or other documentation expenses. Here, experts say that delaying citizenship could become even more expensive if government fees continue to increase in future. Now think about this. For many immigrants, getting a green card already takes years, sometimes even decades. But the time families become eligible for citizenship, they are already paying mortgage. They are funding their children's education, they are planning for their retirement and managing their healthcare cost. Now adding another few $1,000s to that list, it's not easy for every family. But experts also pointed out something important here. Citizenship is much more than a passport. It offers voting right, access to more government jobs, greater travel flexibility, and additional legal protection. And that is why many immigration advisors now recommend that families start saving for citizenship years before they become eligible. Because waiting until the last minute, it may only increase financial pressure. The American dream, it does not end with getting permanent residency. For many immigrants, citizenship, that remains the final destination. But while thousands of Indians continue working towards that goal, our next story takes us completely different turn. This one involves a Gujarati man arrested in America in a case that could have serious legal as well as immigration consequences. Ladies and gentlemen, for thousands of Indians living abroad, one mistake can change everything. A successful career, a stable family, years spent building a life in another country. Well, all of it can disappear overnight if somebody gets involved into criminal activities. And that is why this next story has attracted significant attention within the Indian community. A 46-year-old Gujarati man identified as Nayan Patel has been arrested in the US state of Iowa. According to local police, he is accused of offering money to a minor with intentions of engaging with that minor. Investigators say that he was arrested during an undercover operation in which officers used a fake social media profile posing as a minor. Here, authorities have also said that several similar arrests have been made this particular year, as part of the ongoing effort to protect children from online exploitation. Well, officials have not only confirmed the man's immigration status yet, but reports say the case could carry serious immigration consequences if he is not a US citizen. Well, think about this. Across the United States, law enforcement agencies are increasingly using undercover online operations just to identify people attempting to attract minors. Fake profiles, fake conversation, fake meeting location, everything is carefully planned before arrests are made. Police say that these operations are designed to prevent crimes before they actually happen. Now, under this particular law, offences involving minors, it is treated very seriously. If somebody is convicted, they could face years in prison. In fact, lifelong registration requirement and severe restriction even after completing their sentences. And for the non-US citizen, the consequences can become even bigger. Criminal conviction involving serious offences can affect visa status, green cards, and even lead to deportation proceeding here. In fact, cases like these also damage the image of a wider Indian community, which has earned a strong reputation across America through education, business, and professional achievements. One person's alleged actions should never define an entire community, but every such headline reminds us that respecting local law is essential for everybody living abroad. And yes, while one legal battle is just beginning, our next story brings some relief for thousands of immigrants already sitting inside American detention center. Imagine being arrested. Imagine sitting inside a detention center. Days become weeks, weeks become months, but you still don't know when a judge will hear your particular case. Well, for thousands of immigrants in America, that has been their reality. And now a major court ruling has changed particular thing. The Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal has ruled that many immigrants arrested by ICE inside the U.S. must receive a bond hearing within 90 days. The court said that keeping people in immigration detention for more than 3 months without a bond hearing violates constitutional due process protection. The whole ruling applies to Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, where many migrants have reportedly spent maybe months or even more than a year in detention without such hearing. Now, think why this particular decision matters. Immigration detention is different from a criminal conviction. Many people being held have not been convicted of any sort of crime. Some are waiting for asylum hearing, others are fighting deportation cases, some have lived in America for years. The court has now said that people cannot simply remain in detention indefinitely without getting an opportunity to appear before a judge. In the meantime, supporters of the ruling say that it protects basic constitutional right. However, the government argues that releasing some detainees could increase the risk of people disappearing before their immigration cases are completed. Well, that debate is likely to continue. In fact, legal experts believe the issue could eventually reach the United States Supreme Court. For now, however, thousands of detainees may receive an opportunity that many have been waiting for. Basically, a chance to request release while their immigration case continues. But yes, while one story brings some hope for immigrants, our next story shows how America's tech industry is changing once again. And this time, it directly affects Indian professionals looking for the H-1B jobs. Well, for years, getting hired by Uber, it was a dream for thousands of Indian software engineers. A high-paying job, a chance to work in Silicon Valley, and for many, an H-1B visa that could eventually lead to permanent residency in America. But today, the hiring landscape is definitely changing in the US. Well, artificial intelligence is transforming the tech industry faster than anybody ever expected. Companies are becoming more and more selective about hiring. Some are slowing recruitment, others are investing billions of dollars into AI instead of expanding their workforce. Well, Uber is now becoming the latest example of that particular shift. Ladies and gentlemen, according to recent data, Uber filed about 364 H-1B visa applications during the first half of fiscal year 2026, as compared to 497 applications during the same period last year. Now, that represents a significant decline in hiring through H-1B program. And at the very same time, Uber continues to offer high salary for a specialized position, with software engineering managers earning up to $410,000 a year. While the company's report suggests that slowdown is linked to higher visa costs and a growing focus on artificial intelligence investment rather than expanding headcount. Now think about what that tells us. Companies are not completely stopping recruitment. Instead, they are becoming much more selective now. In fact, the message is definitely clear here if you hear it. Average skills may no longer be enough. Technology companies are now searching for specialists who can build AI systems, manage complex software platforms, and solve highly specialized engineering problems here. Well, that explains why hiring numbers are falling while salaries for top talent continue to remain extremely high. For the Indian professionals hoping to work in America, this changing trend it carries an important lesson. The future job market will increasingly reward specialized skills rather than simply years of experience now. Artificial intelligence, in fact, machine learning, cybersecurity, cloud computing, and advanced software engineering are becoming some of the most valuable skills in today's global economy. Experts also believe that higher H-1B visa costs introduced over the past year have encouraged companies to become more and more careful before filing new applications. Every visa petition now represents a bigger financial commitment. That means employers want to be absolutely certain before bringing new international talent to the United States. Well, for thousands of Indian engineers, the American dream is still alive, but the competition is becoming tougher than ever before. And yes, while America continues adjusting its hiring strategy, India is also making an important strategic decision. This time, not about technology, but about energy security. Well, every time there's a conflict in West Asia, India starts paying close attention because millions of Indian families depend on something very, very simple, and that is just basic cooking oil. Whenever tensions rise near the Strait of Hormuz, energy markets across the globe become nervous. Oil tankers face delays, supply chain become uncertain, and countries that depend heavily on Gulf energy begin looking for alternative. Ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what India is now doing. According to reports, India is preparing to significantly increase its import of liquefied petroleum gas, LPG, from the United States. Discussions are underway to potentially double the country's existing contracted volume as India looks to reduce its dependency on Gulf supplier following the recent disruption caused by the West Asia conflict. Officials are also exploring additional suppliers here, including Algeria, while working towards creating a larger strategic LPG reserve for its own. Now, think why this matters. For many families, an LPG cylinder it is simply part of everyday life. But behind every gas cylinder, there is a massive global supply chain. Well, if ships cannot move safely through important sea routes, countries begin worrying about energy security. And that is exactly what happened during the recent conflict in West Asia. Although crude oil supplies remained relatively stable, LPG shipment faced disruption, forcing India to look for reliable alternatives. The United States, though, quickly emerged as one of India's most important supplier here. In fact, the share of American LPG in India's total import has increased sharply over the recent months. Experts say that this is not just about buying more and more gas, it is about reducing risk here. No country wants to depend too heavily on one region for an essential resource, right? Diversifying suppliers make the entire system more and more secure. Now, this growing energy partnership is also strengthening the economic ties between India and the US. Energy is now becoming an important pillar of the US-India relationship alongside technology, defense, and even trade. And you know what? As the world becomes increasingly unpredictable, countries are learning one very, very important lesson. National security is no longer only about armies or weapons. It is also about ensuring uninterrupted supplies of food, fuel, and energy. And yes, while India is representing international partnership, our final story takes us to Canada, where police have arrested an Indian origin man in connection with a major criminal investigation. Well, for years, Canada has been one of the most popular destinations for Indian immigrants. thousands of students, thousands of professionals, thousands of business owners. Most contribute very positively to the Canadian society. But every now and then, a criminal case involving members of this particular community makes international headlines. And that is pretty sad for Indians out there. And you know what? This one is such a case. Canadian police have arrested 22-year-old Indian origin man. His name is Safaldeep Singh, who is alleged to have links with the Four Brother criminal network. Well, according to authorities, the organization has been connected to extortion and violent incidents targeting Indo-Canadian business owners in different parts of Canada. Police say that Singh was already wanted on Canada-wide warrant related to conspiracy to commit the crimes before his latest arrest. He has now been transferred to Ontario, where he is expected to face multiple criminal charges. Now, think about what that really means. Over the past few years, Canadian authorities have reported an increase in extortion cases targeting South Asian business owners, specifically. In fact, many shop owners, restaurant owners, builders, or transport operators, they have reported receiving threatening phone calls demanding money. Police say that these are not any isolated incidents. They believe that organized criminal networks are operating across multiple provinces. And that is why law enforcement agencies have been working day and night with federal investigators to dismantle these dangerous kind of groups. You know what, officials say that several arrests have already been made as part of those particular investigations. Well, for the vast majority of Indians living in Canada, stories like these are deeply disappointing. The overwhelming majority of the community is law-abiding. They are hardworking and contribute very positively to the country's economy. But whenever organized crime becomes associated with any community, it creates fear. It damages reputation and raises concern among ordinary families. Police investigations are continuing, and the court will ultimately decide the outcome of this particular case. But you know what? The arrest also sends a very clear message here. Ladies and gentlemen, authorities are stepping up efforts against organized crimes. And no one found violating the law will be beyond the reach of justice. And with that, we come to an end of tonight's Skyline. Well, the lives of Indians abroad are changing rapidly. In fact, every new policy, every court decision, every international development, and every headline has the potential to affect millions of families around the globe. As always, we will continue bringing you the biggest stories that matters to Indians living overseas. Thank you for watching. I am Driti. Atri. Stay informed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode of Skyline.